Good evening, everybody. I see people is now joining. So this is wonderful news. Thank you. This is going very quick. As you know, well, first of all, everybody, welcome to this first talk, forum, palestra of our ARCOlisboa online edition. This is an experiment for all of us, and I really want to thank Catarina Vaz Pinto and Tobi Maier for doing this with us, being so generous of taking this challenge. Catarina Vaz Pinto, she is the vereadora de Cultura de Cámara Municipal de Lisboa. Tobi Maier, director of Galerias Municipais. The City Council of Lisboa, the Cámara Municipal, is a great and very important support for ARCOlisboa. So when we decided to go virtual, we thought that we really wanted the representation and the spirit of that support that is so important for the fair to be present. We thought of different ways, and this seemed to be a very, very, very good one, like very direct and able to connect with everybody who is interested in knowing more about Lisboa and the structure and the scene of art. So as we will do it short, because we think everybody is busy and we want to give the best of our time, I'm going to leave you two to talk, decide whether you feel more comfortable English, Portuguese. I'm sure our audience will understand. And well, after that, if there are some questions, I will appear again and then I will ask them. So I leave you two to it, and thank you so much again.
Thank you, Maribel, for the kind introduction. Good evening, Catarina. Thank you for taking time for this short conversation within the context of the program. Features a magnificent group of artists and galleries from Portugal and around the world. I had the opportunity to browse a little bit until now and saw marvelous works by Marta Soares, the Untitled 2018 painting at Francisco Fino, or Horacio Frutuoso's Escrever sobre at 3+1. Catarina, let's jump right into it. You studied law, but when you were only 30 years old, you founded the Forum Dança Cultural in 1990 and acted as its chief executive from 91 till 95. What were your highlights, and how was the spirit of entrepreneurship in the arts in Lisbon during the late 80s and early 90s? And how was it different from today, perhaps, that you remember?
Hi, Tobi. Hi, Maribel. First of all, I wanted to thank the invitation and the opportunity to be in these talks, which I think it's a very interesting initiative. So to go quickly to the question, I don't know if we can talk about entrepreneurship in that period as we talk about it now. Even the word doesn't exist in the common language as it is used now. And in that time, the scene was not at all so dynamic as it is before. We have to remember that we had the revolution in '74, and after the revolution, the independent theater companies emerged. There were only a few galleries, namely Galerias 111 or Galeria Quadro, which is today a municipal gallery, but at that time was the most avant-garde gallery run by Dulce d'Agro. So the system was not so dynamic, but I would say in the dance world, which is the one where I was involved, it was really in the late 80s that it started this kind of new approach to producing, to new production and management models, not based so much on the kind of traditional company, And Forum Dança, the organization I was running, and it was one of the examples of that. So in the dance world, there were only, in that period, the Ballet Gulbenkian with a modern repertory, the National Dance Company with a classical repertory, and then new artists emerged, mainly those who came from the Ballet Gulbenkian, such as Vera Montero, Francisco Camacho, and it is with these people that the dance system started to become very dynamic, and it was really a very interesting artist period. And for instance, in Forum Dança, we were a non-profit association that we were doing training. We were producing several of these artists, not on the basis of a company, but on the basis of projects. And we were the first at that time to have an international agreement with Klapstuk. So it was with dance, which is not that much based on a company, on a stable group of artists, because the people like to work with different artists in each project. So a kind of new approach emerged. This is my personal experience. And then in the 1995, when the first Ministry of Culture was created, then the dance area got some funding, and then another period was into existence, and then many more production companies appeared.
That would also take me directly to my second question, because in the mid-90s, you then became the Deputy Minister of Culture in the government of Portugal from 95 to 97, and subsequently State Secretary of Culture from 97 to 2000. And between 2003 and 2007, you served as Executive Coordinator of the Gulbenkian Program for Creativity and Artistic Creation. Now, of course, we all that we work in the arts know that public and private funding programs are very important to artists and cultural workers. How do you see philanthropy developing in Portugal, Catarina, and what can policymakers do to support it here?
I would say that also because we lived almost under 15 years under a dictatorship, the art system developed much later in Portugal than in other European countries. So also the philanthropy system developed much later, and it's not so intense and strong as in other European countries. And I would say this is mainly also because of that, and because there was not such an awareness and sensibility for culture. Also, the companies didn't take too much. There was not so important for them to invest and promote the arts. But I think in recent years this changed, and many banks and corporations started to have a more consistent and stable approach to funding, to arts funding, and many of them even created foundations only to do and develop their philanthropic work. So I think it's rather different now than it was before, but still there is a lot of work to do. And I think the most important things for policymakers is both. It has two main ideas behind. So one of them is to really invest more and design better the fiscal measures that companies can use, but mainly also for individuals, because in Portugal, in contrary to the Anglo-Saxon world, there is not a tradition of individuals to support the arts. And this is a cultural question. I think it's a question also from most of the continental countries in Europe. It's very different from the Anglo-Saxon world. But mainly what public policymakers should do is invest and promote the artistic education at different levels, because it's through the artistic education that people can enjoy art, understand it, and then creates the need for art and the awareness and the sensibility. And this is very important to create audiences for the overall system. And this is still a level where we do have a lot of work to do.
Thank you. The arrival of the ARCO Art Fair has, of course, also contributed in that sense to philanthropy in Lisbon, I guess, and when it arrived in 2016. And the proliferation of galleries in Lisbon has created opportunities for artists to thrive and allowed increased international visibility for the visual art sector in general in this city and also in Portugal. The city of Lisbon is also developing a collection of contemporary art. How do you see the art scene in Lisbon then today, Catarina, or having it accompanied for so many years? And what is the aim of the collection that you are developing together with the city of Lisbon?
Well, I think the ARCOlisboa, it was a major step in the development of the contemporary art scene in Lisbon, not only because of the fair itself, but because of all the parallel events, all the parallel programmation that was made around the fair, about all the collectors that the ARCO has brought to Portugal. So this was a major step, and since the beginning we were involved in the organization, and so we wanted very much, and it was also in that period we wanted the fair to be a success. So we tried to help in through different ways, and one of them, it was precisely through the collection. And the collection was, on the one hand, a sign and a signal to the system, to the galleries, to the artists, to the other public and private institutions, that a sign that we were taking part and wanted to be a player in the market itself. But then the collection is, as all the collections, has an objective in itself. And for us, it was very important, again, to support artists and galleries, but also to try to understand to the acquisitions the kind of ethical and artistic options that were the most relevant, that are more relevant in our time, in the present, and with that also to kind of create a collection that is important for the forthcoming generations and for the future, and to create a kind of a bit of history of art through this collection.
Great. As we have been living or visiting the city for many years, life in the city has changed gradually during your tenure as Lisbon City's Councillor for Culture, and since 2009 in particular. How do you compare the challenges that the financial crisis imposed on Lisbon and Portugal back then to the challenges that we are facing through COVID-19 now? What initiatives would you like to see, Catarina, for arts in Lisbon now that the cultural sector needs all possible support?
So when I entered the municipality, we were in crisis. It was in 2009. So I would say the 5 years of I am in my 11th year on office. And the 5 first years were deep crisis, and we had very little money, and it was really very tough. Then we have this very good period between 1915 and until now, until very recently, a few months ago. But I would say this crisis is much deeper and much different than the previous one, because I think this crisis will bring a true change of paradigm of the whole society. And in that sense, it's much more difficult to understand, because also the cultural system is much bigger now than it was before. It's much more dynamic. So it's much more diverse, and it's very much more difficult to try to understand what we really should do to sustain it. So I would say what will happen in the future and what we have seen until now, it's a very big, important development in all the digital contents and digital platforms. And what we are seeing, what this conversation, it's about that. Everybody in all artistic areas are developing their online tools, and some of them are not qualified enough. So I would say that we need to technically qualify our platforms, our tools to present and artworks online. And so I think this is one of the main areas that we have to invest. But I think the physicality remains paramount, the physical access to culture. And in this physical access, it's really difficult because we don't know yet. On the one hand, we know for galleries and museums what are the sanitary restrictions and what can we show, how can we show can we see the arts now? We can start to see live art that is presented in museums and galleries, but in other sectors that it's mainly in theaters and live outdoor performance, this is not evident. And the whole question of the economic sustainability of the sector, it's also crucial. And I think we have to look at the art system as a whole, as an ecosystem with its immense diversity, with the diversity of artistic areas, the business model and the sustainability models of the different artistic sectors. We have to take care about the solidarity in between the artistic community itself, because some of them have public funded, some of them from one day to the other became completely without any kind of income because they rely on their tickets and audiences. So it's really much more complex, the crisis, that it has been before. And also, I don't think we are suffering, probably we will suffer more, but also the crisis will also be an opportunity to introduce some changes that that we felt were necessary, namely the climate agenda, the question of we have been seeing the question of too much productivity and activity that were exhausting people and the planet. So there is a kind of the sense that we were all connected, but in reality we were many people live in solitude and alone. So many questions that were present before, maybe they can have an opportunity to be led now, but we don't know because many things are at stake and behind the scenes. I think many discussions and many conflicts are being dealt within the major players, companies, and we still don't, it's difficult to see how we are going to come out through the crisis, this crisis. Yes. But I would say we need solidarity. We need to be. We need mainly solidarity. We need to be take care of everybody. We need to understand what is really crucial and what is priority and what is not so much priority. So there are a lot of questions that are ahead of us.
And you mentioned some very crucial aspects there, like de-acceleration, but also the care for for the Medio Ambiente, and Lisbon was awarded the title of European Green Capital in 2020, something that was announced and we couldn't really celebrate until now, right? But amidst the current climate, you have also been very outspoken about ideas such as good practice or slow culture. And perhaps that also connects to what you've been saying previously, but what are we able to learn from these concepts, in your opinion, at this moment of crisis, of reflection, of de-acceleration?
Yes, many people are talking now, and one of the main problems to the environmental crisis was really that we were too accelerated in producing too much in our economic system. But many people were talking about already about that there was too much, even in Lisbon, that we had too much, maybe too much programming. People couldn't go to all what was happening now, even that we in other capitals are much more important than Lisbon in that sense. All the blockbusters, all the blockbuster exhibitions. So this is really very demanding and exhausting a lot of resources, not only for the exhibition itself, but mainly lots of traveling, lots of things that through climate agenda has to put in question. So we are precisely in that moment that we have to understand and be very inventive and creative, and not only the artists, but we all as a society. How can we find new balances between what was existing before and what we want, in what world we want to live in, and think at this crisis as an opportunity. So to rebuild new balances, that is what I think that is the most important. And so many new formats, mainly, for instance, in the performing arts, small formats, small scale formats. I think there will, in the next few months, I think it's essential because of the sanitary restrictions. We cannot do more than this. We cannot do more than small formats, small scale formats, projects in very unconventional places. But then when the vaccine is discovered and we won't have no more sanitary questions, the economic questions will remain. And so for them, we have to find new answers, and we need to be very inventive and work together, I think.
Definitely, yeah. Within the context of Lisbon European Green Capital, at the Municipal Galleries, we are also working on an exhibition called Earth Keeping, Earth Shaking, Ecology, Feminism and Art. Hopefully we'll be open it in July, and everybody who listens can come and join us.
Let me just say something about the European capital. Despite we haven't done most of the program that we have thought. Yes. For us, this award was a kind of first step for a roadmap until 2030. So we will launch a lot of measures, not this year, but until the 2030, in order to comply with the requirements of the Paris Agreement and what else will be decided until now. But we are doing a lot of effort and the whole city, mainly on the using of cars, developing parks, and to create confidence for people we do a lot of education and pedagogical activities in order for mainly young generations to cope with the questions of the climate agenda.
So certainly a lot of challenges there for all of us, but also possibilities to collaborate. We're coming to an end of the conversation. I still wanted to pose my last question, Catarina. You've been in so many very interesting positions during your career. I was wondering if there was an advice that you would give young people who seek a job or a career within arts and culture today.
Well, the thing is, people who work in the art field, they are always very passionate. Also, producers, not only the artists are passionate, everybody is very passionate. So this is a very a strength from people who work in that. But I would say it's more and more complex to work in this area, and we have to keep curious to understand how the world works, and many for us that are in the more producing side of the thing, we have to understand how economics works, how funding works, but also keep in mind that we have also our main task is to provide the conditions for art to exist. So it's very complex. We have to be, as I used to say, we have to know about emotion and state of soul, but also we have to know about numbers and all the other more not so interesting matters, but that they may make us the world run. So we need to do both.
Thank you. I think Maribel was going to join us again.
Yeah, that was a really important question. Sorry, I jumped before time, but I wanted to share, there are a few questions, but I'm going to share one of them so far, so also not to take your whole evening. So the audience is asking, ARCOlisboa has incorporated African galleries and artists in the fair, and last year there was a lot of museum with exhibitions related to the African continent. Is there an impact on the city and its citizens? Is a new conversation open? I know this is relevant for the culture and the city, so I thought it was a very interesting question to pose, you know?
I think Lisbon it has always been a city where many say there is a lot of African influence. Even Calaf, you know, he says Lisbon is the most African city in Europe. We have been having lots of we had some years ago a project that was called Africa Cont, that was supposed to work about contemporary African art. Then it didn't develop as it was thought in the beginning, but through our gallery, we always did throughout the years. We have always have a programmation concerning contemporary African art, and we are very happy that ARCO itself took this very important characteristic of the city and identity trace to also make it distinctive from ARCO Madrid, because Lisbon is different from Madrid. And what I would say is Lisbon, it's a multicultural city. It's uma cidade de misturas, Lisboa mistura, okay? I think mistura, it's a very good Portuguese expression to explain how we all these communities, artistic communities, how they play together, mainly in contemporary art and music, I would say, are the most strong areas where this exchange happens.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. It's true that it was something that ARCOlisboa absorbed and not added, but it's true that it was there, and we were lucky enough to be in the context. So it's good that also to feel that we are connecting with that is happening. And I also want to thank your words and
to the topic. Of course, our predecessors at the municipal galleries have done also important work in that respect. And this year we are organizing exhibitions with Kiluanji Kia Henda, who is from Angola, and also with Ionamine and Tiago Borges. So there's also some work being done in that direction at the municipal galleries. Of course, we've been also working on this whole South-South connection, presenting artists from Latin America, which I deem also quite important in that respect.
Definitely. And it's true that we were very excited with those exhibitions, and it's really sad that we couldn't enjoy it this time, but hopefully in the future. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for such an interesting conversation. Thank you for your patience with our beginning. And of course, again, I want to say thank you for the continuous support to ARCOlisboa being here and the support to the galleries, that it's so key and for the continuation of the project. And thank you, really, it was super interesting. And
yeah, always welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Well, I hope to see you soon in Lisbon.
Bye.
Soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.